Good afternoon and welcome to Usability Science's November webinar. Is your research leaving you battle weary? How to build the right arsenal. My name is Candace McFarland and I'm a usability analyst with Usability Sciences. Today's presentation is going to cover some of the methodologies that we use at Usability Sciences. This presentation will be about 45 minutes. And feel free to ask questions using the WebEx Q&A feature, which is featured in the panel that you're seeing to the side of your screen. I will answer the Q&A questions at the end of the session. A logistic item a lot of people ask us, are we going to be able to get the slides emailed to us or the presentation? And the answer is yes. The presentation will be emailed to you at the email that you registered with early next week. And at that time, you'll also be able to find this presentation on our website, which is www.usabilitysciences.com. Okay, so I think we're about ready to jump into this webinar. So let's face it, we've all got our go-to methodology, the one that we're just really comfortable with. So maybe you're a focus group person, maybe you can't get enough usability testing, but is your go-to method always the best way to get the answers to your questions? Maybe, maybe not. So I'd like to look at many user-centered design methodologies today, in hopes that the next time that you're reaching for, that tried and true one that you love, you might try on another one for size. We're going to be covering several methodologies today. We're going to identify a problem that you might be experiencing, a solution for that problem, what that particular methodology does, and when it's appropriate. I'm going to be talking about the UCD process today, the user-centered design process. So I just want to kind of give you a broad definition of what that is. This graphic kind of shows you a very typical, a very general UCD process where you go from analysis and planning into that concept phase. You start building out designs, you start coding it on the back end, you go ahead and implement it, and then you're at the post-launch period. So in broad terms, user-centered design is a design philosophy and a process in which the needs, wants, and limitations of end users of a product are given extensive attention at each stage of that design process. User-centered design can be characterized as a multi-stage problem-solving process that not only requires designers to analyze and foresee how users are likely to use a product, but also to test the validity of their assumptions with regards to user behavior in real-world tests with actual users. Such testing is necessary because it's often difficult for designers of a product to understand intuitively what a first-time user of their design might experience and what each user's learning curve may look like. So let's go ahead and jump into one of our problems. And I'm going to give you what I hope will be a fun little exercise in which you can guess what weapon you need to solve each of these problems. So let's go ahead and check out our first one. So maybe you're undergoing a redesign and you want to identify current pain points of maybe your website, of your product, of your piece of software, whatever it might be. Let's say that you want to get early concepts in front of users to determine if you're headed down the right path. Or perhaps you want to know if the most common goals users have when interacting with your product or service can be achieved. So, the most appropriate weapon for this research is nunchucks, a .50 caliber machine gun, or mace. Have you guys locked in those answers? So the answer on this one is the .50 caliber machine gun. I've got a friend who told me that this is the standard issue for the Army. And if it's standard issue for them, then it's good enough for us, right? So this is our tried and true, our go-to weapon that can be used in many different ways. So I'm wondering if you guys have figured out what methodology I'm talking about yet. We like to use this one early and often, and it is the usability test. I've also included on this slide the rapid iterative prototype test. So let me explain the difference between the two. So what is this in general? Basically, users are going to try to accomplish common tasks using your product to determine its ease of use. The difference between a usability test and rapid iterative prototype testing really deals with the functionality and the fidelity of what you've got and what you're working with. So a usability test traditionally is done when you're in that design stage where you have a fully designed prototype or website. It could be live, it might not be live, and you're going through the common tasks. Now what rapid iterative does, which is so great, is it gives you some time between days, like between sessions, to allow your design team to go back and make changes. So let's say I'm doing a rapid iterative on something that is still being built out, but you've got a rough framework. Let's say you're in the low or medium fidelity prototype phase. So I'll have you come in on Monday, we'll get some users in the room, we'll have them try to do some common tasks. We'll get feedback. We'll figure out what's confusing and what's easy. Your design team will make some changes on Tuesday. We'll get back in the lab on Wednesday, put those new designs in front of users on Wednesday, get their thoughts. Again, iterate on Thursday. Your design team is making some changes, and we get users back into the lab on Friday. So this is a very quick and efficient way to identify problems and figure out what's working for folks and what's not. So what is this good for, both usability testing and rapid iterative? It's great for gauging the overall usability of your product and identifying those pain points that you need to remedy. Okay, when should we use this? So the ones highlighted in green here. So during analysis and planning, this is a great time to use it when you've got things that are rough. Also during concept and those design phases, you probably want to use a rapid iterative approach if you have a design team that's flexible enough to make changes fairly quickly. It's also great to run a usability test after you've launched. This is a great way to give yourself sort of a baseline measure for how you're doing, so that when you iterate again, you have somewhere to say, hey, we knew that problem was still existing, we're going to be working on it. Or, oh wow, this buying a pair of shoes seemed to go a lot easier during this round. What does it give you? It gives you an understanding of the ease or difficulty in accomplishing certain tasks. And it also gives you that benchmark for assessing later iterations. Okay, so we're going to jump to the next one. This is another problem, and you're going to find, you're going to try to figure out what methodology I'm talking about here. So the boss tells you that they want you to get innovative. Maybe you've never seen your customers use your product in real life, or maybe it's been a while. When was the last time that you saw actual customers sitting there using your product? You want to see people shop for your product. You want to know how they even make decisions on what to buy. Or maybe you've got what you consider, or what the industry considers to be a best-in-class product or website, piece of software, mobile app, whatever it might be, but you want to get even better, which means that you need to go beyond just perusing other people's products. So, most appropriate weapon for this one, you have a musket, a sword, or mustard gas. Well, this one is the sword. Let me tell you why. So, there's nothing like a little hand-to-hand combat. A sword requires you to get up close and personal, right? You've got to look that person in the eye. You cannot do this from 90 miles away and shoot off some missile. You've got to see the scenery. You've got to get a handle for this person. You've got to reach deep and see what's really going on. So I'm wondering if you know the methodology, which is field research or contextual inquiry. This is sometimes also called ethnography. So what is this? This is basically immersion in your customer's world through observation and interviewing. The situation here is that you're going to go out into your customers' homes, businesses, wherever they use your product or wherever they might use your product, and you're going to be uncovering their needs by really seeing how they use it, what frustrations they have, how it integrates into their life in general. So what is this good for? It's great for getting deeper, for uncovering those needs, for seeing actual rather than perceived use. We often get people in a lab setting for a usability test, and we know the computer that they're working on, or we know how they're holding it because we basically, give them it to hold, or whatever it might be. But seeing customers in the real world using something is very different. It's also great for understanding how multiple channels help or hurt users. So with many other studies, we kind of focus on one channel at a time. But in real life, your users don't just stick with an online chat or going to the store. They get frustrated with one channel and they turn to the other. So this is a great way to sort of see that life cycle of your channels and seeing how one person integrates with many different parts of your company. So when should I use this? Ideally, every piece of research, a new product would start with a contextual inquiry phase. It's great because it allows you to really go deep, understand your customers on that deep level before you even start down the path of designing. So what is it going to give you? It's basically going to give you a framework for understanding how a product or service integrates into a customer's life. Okay, so let's try another one here. So here's the problem. You want to track how a customer interacts with your product over time. And maybe you want to get as it happens feedback. You want to understand the ramp-up time with your product. And perhaps your product requires some level of privacy. So, the most appropriate weapon for this research is a bazooka, mustard gas, a sniper. You think you know? Okay, well this one is a sniper. Maybe this is a good time to let you know that Usability Sciences does not condone violence. And this is this is just meant to be a nice little metaphor. Okay, so just like a sniper, your user never knows you're there. They can interact with the product on your own, and meanwhile you're in this nest, waiting for their latest update. Okay, so I don't know how you're thinking about if I'm doing well on my metaphors or not, but this one is a diary study. So basically what this allows you to do is users of your product or service are going to check in with you over phone, email, maybe a web tool. You're going to pose questions to them and they're going to give you some answers back. So there's many different ways to do this, but it is a great way to get real feedback from users. So, maybe you've just released a mobile application and you recruit some users to be in a diary study with you. And you have them, maybe somebody at your company emails them and says, they'd be recruited, of course, first, but emails the participants and says, next time you experience X, go ahead and email us and tell us how that experience was. Or let us know on Tuesday. We'll send you a reminder what you did today with the mobile application. Did anything frustrate you? Was anything, were you delighted by anything? Was there anything that you were not interested in using that you saw? Any number of questions can be posed to your users, and then you can get feedback about those questions. What is this good for? It's great for capturing how users learn and how their attitudes and experiences change over time. We had a company in here that made calculators, and during the usability test, people were, had varying levels of success in using a calculator that they had never used before. So what we decided to do was to launch a diary study, because our client said, people with a calculator learn how to use it over time. How can we see how long that learning process is and how difficult or easy it actually is when you're in the real world learning? So this is a perfect occasion to get feedback about how somebody learns and grows with your product. And then you can discover, okay, well, it's going to take a week for them to get to an intermediate type level, or it's going to take 6 months for them to get to an intermediate type level. Is this appropriate? Is this reasonable? Those kinds of questions. This is also great for getting feedback when direct observation isn't realistic. So to give you another example, if your product deals with something that maybe in a shower environment, and you're not going to really be able to see your users because of privacy issues actually use your product. Well, a diary study is great because they can tell you how it worked for them, what they liked, what they didn't like, etc. Now, a caveat on the diary study, which you may have already realized, is that there's a big difference between a self-reported type research and behavioral research. So in a diary study, this is all self-reported. So a person can certainly not be aware of something that they're doing and therefore not write it to you in an email, or they may be embarrassed or uncertain about whether they want to share something with you or uncomfortable. So a diary study certainly doesn't let you directly observe them. It's not you looking over their shoulders, but that self-reporting can have real benefits. So just keep in mind when we're looking at these methodologies, is it a behavioral methodology or is it self-reported? So when should I use this? It's great to use a diary study during your analysis and planning stages. You could even use a diary study with a competitor's product to kind of understand how it's working for them right now and how then you could actually make it even better. It's also great for post-launch. So you've launched something and you really want to understand if people are liking it, what they're doing with it, and then that's going to inform future iterations. So what is it going to give me? It's going to give me a way to determine usage patterns through actual contextual use, and it's going to give you users' experience told to you in their own words. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to our next problem. And again, just as a reminder, I'm going to be taking questions in the Q&A tool after, so if you do have questions, please post them there and I will check them at the end. Okay, so let's say that your users are having trouble navigating your site, or you have a new information architecture that you want to ensure is easy to understand. Maybe there's disagreement on how to name your top level or secondary navigation labels. So, most appropriate weapon for this research. We've got the shark, a laser beam, or the shark with a laser beam. Okay, shark with a laser beam. Let me tell you why. This next methodology is laser focused. It's the narrowest methodology that we've got on our weapons menu today. So It is the card sort. A card sort is basically a research methodology in which users are going to group items that represent your navigational structure in a way that makes sense to them. And users might also name the groups. So let's use the example of you're in the grocery store. And I talked to a few of you folks who are on the phone, and I say to you, where do you think you would find the tomatoes, the bananas, and then almond milk? And you say to me, maybe a couple of you say, well, tomatoes and bananas definitely I'm going to find in the produce section. Almond milk, I'm sure I'm going to find in the dairy section. But then I talked to a couple of you who maybe shop at a place that I shop at, which is called Kroger. And Kroger puts their almond milk in the produce section. I think with the idea that it's almonds, which nuts are often found kind of near the produce section. So in this case, we've got several people who anticipate or would in a card sort put almond milk with the dairy items. Definitely tomato and banana is a no-brainer in terms of putting it in produce. We probably have very few people who would put those items anywhere else. And then the almond milk, we've got a couple people who think it's in dairy, a couple people who think it's in produce. Well, a card sort is going to help us figure out all of that structure, where people anticipate things are. And in this case, with the almond milk, there's a couple of things that you can do when you're analyzing your results. The first is to make a decision. Let's say it's 60-40 and 60% of people think it's supposed to be in dairy and 40% think it's supposed to be in produce. Well, maybe you just throw it over in dairy. Your folks are going to search your site. They're going to be looking for almond milk, and hopefully they will head over there. And if they head into produce, maybe they'll change their mind. Another way that you could deal with that is have it duplicative. Put it over in produce and put it in dairy. And then finally, a third way to handle it would be put it in dairy, which most people thought it would be in, but then kind of mention it over in produce, that if you're looking for such things, they can be found over here. And of course, you would want to include a link with that. Anyway, that's a very simplistic idea of what a card sort is, but it sometimes helps people get an idea. So what is this good for? It's great for determining if an IA meets users' expectations. It's great for identifying a website's organizational problems, and it can help you decide on the right top level or secondary navigation naming. Now, what is it not good for? It is not good for replacing the role of the information architect for your company. We love information architects and taxonomists. We need them because this is in no way taking the place of what they're doing. You need to have a good solid foundation for an IA, and this is really helping you validate and find pain points. You really shouldn't be using this to just completely make your site, because it won't work. There's only a certain amount of things that your users are really capable of kind of understanding on that macro level. So when should I use this? This is done in the first half of the UCD process during the concept or design phase. You want to have enough time to make changes to your design before you get it into coding and developing, but you want to have enough there that there is something for your users to actually be grouping. So what does this give me? It gives me tree diagrams showing relationships between items and where there are strong relationships and where there are weak relationships. And then it gives me possible names for navigational groups if that's how you intend to work it. And just an aside there's a difference between an open card sort in which your users are actually naming those groups and a closed card sort in which they're just putting the items in the group into various groups that you've already named for them. Okay, so ready for the next problem? Let's say that you want to gauge the competition. You want to determine which features and functions are in demand. Or maybe you say that you want to be best in class. How are we going to do that? Paratroopers, poisonous dart, a heat-seeking missile. You guys ready? Okay, this one is paratroopers. So, according to Wikipedia, paratroopers are used for tactical advantage because they can be inserted into the battlefield from the air, thereby allowing them to be positioned in areas not accessible by land. And that's kind of what you're trying to get to here. You're trying to get behind the lines. You're trying to go deep into enemy territory. And so you might have guessed that this is competitive research. What is this? Well, this could be a usability test. This could be contextual inquiry. This really could be a diary study. It could be a focus group. But it basically is going to assess your competition and then where you stack up. What is this good for? It's great for determining the strengths and weaknesses of a product or service. And it's great for uncovering how important certain features are to users. So if you've got people looking at your competitors and you start seeing real enthusiasm about certain things. Oh, I've got to have that way to blow up that image really big so that I can see it in a 360. Or you've got some features that you think are really hot, but people don't seem to really, they're not moving them at all. It's also great for understanding why users may choose your competition over you. So when you have somebody that starts getting really excited about one of the websites or products or pieces of software, and you say to them, so why would you buy this? Why does this become your top choice at this point? You really get interesting thoughts about when it comes to that actual purchase experience, what drives that person to say yes to one and no to another. And one of the key things that I'd like to focus on with competitive is that we as researchers are often quite negative people. I mean, you come in as clients and, we're picking on your site or we're picking on your product and we're saying, here's a finding, you've got to change this isn't making sense for people. But with competitive research, it's really focusing on the good stuff. We really want to look at what are these bits and pieces of these really positive experiences that users are having that we can kind of make an amalgamation of, if possible, and even get to a more best-in-class, best-in-breed experience. So the focus here is really on pulling out those positive nuggets so that you can benefit. When should I use this? Again, this is a first half of the UCD process methodology. During analysis and planning, during that concept phase and design, understanding your competition is going to be key. What does it give you? It gives you a lineup of various competitors and where they stand in relation to you. And then if you do sort of a usability test, competitive research, it's probably going to give you a best of breed roll-up of how an ideal product or service would work for your users. The next problem is you're thinking about offering additional products and you want to know which features your customers really want. Maybe you need a critique for a new area. So, Canon, kamikaze pilots, mustard gas. Okay, this one is the Canon. I don't know if you guys heard that, my Canon sound. That was a la PowerPoint. Okay, so what is a Canon? Well, it's loud. It does a lot of damage in one fell swoop. And it may or may not be accurate, right? So we come to our focus groups. Focus groups are used to great benefit when they're done appropriately, but are often used inappropriately. So let's talk about what they're really good at. So a focus group is you sit 6 to 10 customers or potential customers or customers of your competitors, whomever you're targeting here. They sit down, there's a moderator, and they're discussing an issue and they're responding to each other. What is this good for? It's great for feature prioritization. Let's say that you've got a lot of different things that you would like to roll out in your next product, and you're not sure which ones users are dying to have and which one they're like, it's fine, whatever, if you've got it, I'll use it, but no worries, right? This is a wonderful way to really identify the things that they're excited about and that they want and that distinguish you from the competition. It's also great for identifying likes and dislikes for a product or website. One of the kind of most successful ways I think that you can use a group of folks is by giving them some things to do in smaller groups. So I was working for a client and they wanted to create a better page right after you select something to buy. A page pops up and it says, thank you for your order. We'll get back to you about when it'll be shipped to you. If you have any questions, call this number. Well, as you can imagine, 1 million people are calling that number, and when is this thing getting shipped to me? And they really decided that this shipping page was not working well for them. So we cut out a lot of different post-buying pages to see if any of them were going to work well. And we gave a bunch of these things out to our focus group participants, and we gave them scissors and some glue, and we said, make the best the best page for after you've bought something. Well, their page had like a tracking number for their actual product. It had information saying that they would receive an email within 24 hours. It had the name of the carrier even. This was very important to the users of this particular website. So by the end of the discussion, we had a darn good post-purchase page, and we later launched it, and then they did some usability testing on it to ensure that it was working for folks. Okay, so when should we use this? Probably during the first half, during that concept and design phase. You want to have some ideas to give your participants, and you want to be able to incorporate those ideas into your product or service. Now, this definitely gives you preferences. We talked a few minutes ago about the difference between a behavioral type research and a sort of self-reported research. So this is definitely self-reported. You're not watching them do something. You're sitting there and they're giving you their thoughts about something, their opinion. So just something to watch out for. The way that they might interact with the actual product or service could be different than what they're telling you in the focus group. And this is a wonderful way to gauge enthusiasm. You kind of quickly see when an idea just gets them very excited about using a new product, and when the thing is kind of dying a sad death. All right, let's go on to our next problem, which is, let's say you want to know which imagery, icons, messaging, or other visual concepts will work best for your website. Or maybe you have competing designs and you want to make sure the most successful one is implemented. So for this research, mustard gas, war games, or a pistol. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this movie War Games, like 1980s, Matthew Broderick. But basically, he's this guy, he hacks into a computer, he's looking at these simulations that that he's doing to see, oh, okay, well this his enemy is doing this, so I'm going to do this, and what's going to happen when I do that. So it's a way to kind of see these if-then sort of scenarios and what's going to happen. And this brings us to beta, or multivariate testing. This is basically testing various components of a website to determine a winner between two or more competing concepts, messages, or designs. So what do I mean? Well, oftentimes, we get a company who comes to us and they're going to do a usability test with us, or a focus group, or some contextual inquiry, whatever it might be. And they say, hey, while you've got them in the room, can we show them, several of our new ideas for banner ads, and just kind of get their thoughts on which one that they like the best? Or maybe they're saying, we're thinking about going with a blue background or a green background. Can you ask them which one they like? So what we have to tell them is, asking 8 or so people, in one city what they think about your banner ad or your new look and feel is really not the best way to get answers to those questions. Sure, it might be interesting, and if all 8 of them clearly like one, then you have to ask yourself, what is it about it that they like, and is that valid? And you should do more testing. So with this advent of beta testing and multivariate testing, these kinds of throwing things in front of users and asking them what they think is really obsolete, because you can change from the self-reported to the behavioral with multivariate or with beta. The idea is that you put that banner ad out on your website, and you're only showing it to a certain percentage of folks, and then you're showing banner ad B and banner ad C as well to the other folks. And you're going to check your metrics. You're going to check conversion, leakage, maybe what the click-through rate is on that particular banner ad. Maybe if it's you've got an email, sign up to receive emails, and you've got various messaging on your site related to that, and you want to see, hey, which message is really my winner? Well, this is a fantastic way to determine a real winner and not just a guess. So what is this good for? It's good for determining a winning design based on metrics such as conversion or leakage. It's great for deciding which of many elements on a page are contributing to a good experience and which are not. When do you want to use this? This is used in the latter half of the UCD process when you're implementing and for post-launch. So as you get that code to your developers and you're working on when you're going to go live, it's a great idea to be talking to your developers about what they have in terms of beta tools, multivariate tools, and then you're going to decide what things you want to test out, and then how are you going to measure that later? Are you going to measure it based on conversion, leakage, a combination, a click-through rate, whatever it might be, and then you can truly determine a winner. And then banner ad B, let's say that clearly wins, well, then that one can be the one that you push out to everyone. So what is this giving me? It's giving me a statistical set of data on which elements of a website consistently produce desired outcomes. Okay, and we are to our last methodology here, and our problem is we want to understand our website users over time. We want to identify users' pain points and their satisfaction with your site. Or we want to understand why your visitors are coming to your site and whether they're successful in what they came for. So you guys ready for the last quiz question here? Most appropriate weapon, wiretapping, satellites, spying. Okay, well, this one's kind of tricky because it is all three. That was sneaky of me. but so is wiretapping satellites and spines. So all of those things are what you've got to do to get really up close and personal with your enemy. I mean, your customers, not your enemy. So let's look at the continuous improvement survey. We have all heard about surveys. You know, you send a survey to a particular group of people, you ask them their thoughts about X, Y, and Z, and then they give you feedback. A continuous improvement survey, it really marries that behavioral data that you're seeing when you're looking at what people are doing on a website with the feedback that they're giving you with a survey. So basically what it is it's a site survey that users take as they're exploring your website that asks them, among other things, you know, why they're on your site, you know, what did you come here to do, and afterwards whether they were successful in accomplishing what they came for. What is this good for? It's great for judging the overall health of your website and for identifying areas of improvement. So I don't know if you guys have ever gone to a site where you get there and it says, hey, would you like to give us some feedback? And it says, yes, I would, or no thanks. And you say, yes, I would. And it pops a question and says, you know, welcome to our site. You know, we're glad that you're here today. You know, what brought you to our site today? And you say, well, you know, I really want to buy a product. And then the site, you know, the survey says, okay, great, you know, go off and do whatever you'd like to do. So then I continue on my little journey. I am trying to find the product and buy it. And then after I X out of their site or leave their site, it pops up again and it says, you know, hey, were you successful in doing what you came here to do? You said that you wanted to buy a product. And I say, no, you know, I wasn't successful. And the survey is going to say, oh, you know, we're really sorry to hear that. What was the issue? And I say, well, you know, I had been in your brick and mortar store the other day and I had seen something, but it wasn't in my size and I didn't want to ask anyone there. So I decided to look on your website to see if I could find it on your site, but I just couldn't find the item I was looking for. So that is a way to get some fantastic feedback about your site and identify those pain points that users are having. In that case, you know, you would have to dig deeper with that survey. It would be asking me questions such as, you know, was it, you know, did you use search? Where did you go to find that information? Exactly what were you looking for? But that's talking, you know, really getting some rich data from your users. So when should I use this? This is the only methodology that we've talked about today that's green for every area of the UCD process, mainly because you want this thing to be running non-stop. So this is like you throw it on your site and you leave it alone. You may tweak questions every now and then. You may have different goals for, you know, every 6 months or something, but you want to have a longitudinal look at the effectiveness of your website. And it also is going to give you page level detail on where users are succeeding and failing. Okay, so, you know, methodologies run the gamut. You know, we've talked about several today, but there are many, many more, as you likely know. So knowing which one is going to lead you to the answers that you want is vital. I always tell my clients, tell me your burning questions. You know, so I encourage you to think about what are your burning questions? What are you and your clients dying to find out? Because those burning questions are going to lead you to the right methodology. Ask yourself if the methodology that you've chosen is going to give you the answers you need. You know, if it is not going to exactly give you what you need, there is probably something better out there that will. So I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please pose them in the Q&A area. Also, if you have questions about our services or anything else that we can do for you, Sam Elliott is our Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and his email address is shown on the screen right now. Our phone number is also shown on the screen. Please feel free to give us a call and discuss some of this or something else that you're thinking about.